It's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. I'd like to read another chapter in this book, Little Cabin by the River, by Joyce Neal. The name of this chapter, which is chapter 4, is From Cow's Palace to Miner's Mansion, or How to Make a Silk Purse Out of a Cow's Ear. We needed a bigger house. As our family grew, the little cabin became impossibly small, but there just weren't any houses available in our tiny town. Then one day, Daddy discovered an old rundown house that sat in a pasture behind the neighbor's barbed wire fence. It had been abandoned years before, and nobody thought it could ever be lived in again. But they didn't know my parents. One afternoon, Daddy ducked between the barbed wires and walked over to inspect the old place. He was shocked to discover it was already inhabited by cattle. They had moved in when the front door had been blown open by the wind, and now they considered this shack their very own. Daddy was pleased as he walked through the rickety old house, because in his eyes it showed some real promise, or at least a hint of promise. But he wasn't sure that Mama would be pleased. Daddy knew he'd have to clean up the place a bit before bringing her over to see it. So he set to work evicting the cows, who weren't too happy about that. Then he tried to sweep away the cow pies and tumbleweeds that filled the rooms. Where to begin? When he brought Mama over to see the house, Daddy was rather proud of his accomplishments. After all, the floor looked ever so much better than before. But when Mama saw the place, she burst into tears. Daddy tried to reassure her, and soon he'd convinced her with a little work they could turn this old house into a real home. Where to begin was the issue. Should they repair the holes in the roof or build a new outhouse? Put in new window panes or chink the gaps in the plaster? Mama knew where to begin. The floors needed another sweeping, or two, and a good scrubbing with bleach. Then the walls and the ceilings needed to be swept down, and whatever glass was left in the window frames had to be washed. Rats lived in the pantry and between the walls, so they had to be dealt with rather firmly. And the birds roosting in the rafters? Well, they were gently urged to find a tree. A silk purse. Have you ever heard a grown-up say that you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear? A sow is a female pig. Don't you believe it? God does it all the time, and I know that for a fact. I learned it firsthand by watching my parents turn that run-down heap of a house into a real first-class home. When they were finished, Daddy joked that it was so fancy it was a regular mansion. And Mama, with her sense of humor, mentioned that since Daddy's last name was Miner, the house was a miner's mansion. The name stuck, and we moved in while it still had holes in the roof and no electricity. Some windows had no glass, and we had no running water. We had no indoor bathroom, and the walls were all rough and unfinished. We had everything we needed. Daddy brought water from the river every day in 5-gallon milk cans, and every evening he did some repairs. He filled the cracks in the walls, or put new glass in the windows. Mama bought some inexpensive paper for the walls and made pretty curtains to cover the fronts of the cupboards. While Mama and Daddy worked in the house, we kids were exploring. We roamed over the hills and the open land all around us, discovering new wonders at every turn. Sagebrush was everywhere, and we had a few pungent junipers. That's a type of bush. Sunshine splashed down on everything, and fresh breezes blew constantly, making the meadowlarks sing their hearts out. I loved the outdoors and would gladly have moved out into it if Mama would have let me. But my favorite discovery of all was the cow cemetery. Warning. Now, I must warn you, if you're a grown-up, you probably better not read this section. But if you're a kid, you're going to love this part. You see, Miner's Mansion was part of a cattle ranch. And when the rancher brought the cattle down from the higher meadows in the fall, some of the cows would die. It was a lot of hard work to bury so many cows, so he'd just drag them with his tractor to the cow cemetery, where they would decompose. Smelled dreadful, but it was fascinating. I approached cautiously at first, half expecting the cows to jump up and run away. When they continued to lie still, I walked nearer and nearer. And then I noticed their skin wiggling. Something was in there. I just had to know what it was. So I picked up a stick and stepped closer, still half afraid the cow would suddenly leap back to life again. The nearer I got, the stronger that bad smell. In fact, I could hardly keep from gagging, but I had to solve the mystery. So I pushed on, my stick poised to defend myself in case it was necessary. I poked gently at a huge, bloated cow carcass. Nothing. Poked harder, and suddenly I heard a hissing sound. A snake? No, but the tiny hole in the cow's hide was bubbling, and watery, foamy stuff started oozing out. The skin was still wiggling, so I poked harder, and then maggots exploded everywhere. You know what a maggot is? It is a little white worm, and it comes from a fly. When flies lay eggs, they hatch into maggots. They flew through the air and splattered on my jeans. Now they were crawling out of the cow's nose and all over my shoes. How delightfully fascinating. I bent over the carcass for a long while, trying to understand these strange going-ons, then decided to go home for lunch and tell Mama what I discovered. She would explain everything. Of course, Mama was horrified and explained that I never should go back there again. Yeah, Miner's Mansion had it all, and then some. The funny thing is, even though the house had some things we wished it didn't, and didn't have some things we wished it did, we were all happy there, even Mama. We had lots of family and fun to go around. There was love and laughter every day. Over the years, several Miner families lived in that old mansion, and there's not one of us who thinks of those years as anything but the times of our lives. You really can make a silk purse out of a cow's ear. Heart to heart. Hey kids, the proverb says you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. Might sound kind of mysterious to you if you've never heard it before, but it just means you can't make something beautiful from ugly material like a pig's ear. No matter how you do it, will always just be a pig's ear and will never turn into silk or anything else. The first time I heard this phrase, it was said by a man who meant to insult someone. He meant the other man was such a poor character he would never amount to anything. That was a mean thing to say, and it isn't true. God can change anyone, even other kids who might seem hopeless to you are beautiful and loved by God. He sees people not so much as they are now, but how they will be if they will let Him make a few changes in their heart. And that's what I meant when I talked about our house. We just learned to look at it through different eyes, the eyes of our heart. Now get out there and see the world through your brand new heart eyes. Lots of love, Grandma. Well, I hope you liked that story. And I liked the idea how they worked together to make that old house into something they could live in. Have you ever had something that was worn out and you made it nice again? Well, if you do, leave me a comment. Anyhow, it's Maria. I love you, I really do. And I want to pray blessings on you, in your house and out of your house, in the day and the night. Whatever you do, keep dreaming. Bye-bye.